I will answer this question, but I think I'm going to stop.
What up, everyone? Shakiel Mahjouri here for Cageside Seats, and you know who this is. We've both seen Donald Trump's toupee in person, but who needs to talk about the former president when we have the First Lady of Ring of Honor, Maria Kanellis-Bennett. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I am doing well. Now, I've seen Trump's toupee as recently as like 2019. How was that hair holding up when you were one of the contestants on The Celebrity Apprentice?
Just as terrifying back then it is now. We would have entire set shutdowns in order to fix his hair. It was pretty incredible.
No way.
Yeah.
Seriously? That's so funny. It seems like everywhere he goes, it kind of shuts down the town for better or worse. But we're not here to talk about him. We're here to talk about you. And before we get into all the amazing work you're doing with Ring of Honor, the pro wrestling landscape as a whole, I want to play a bit of a game here. You know, they say behind every great man is, at the very least, an equally great woman. Yourself working with, of course, Mike, as well as various wrestlers throughout your career. I'd like you to give me your Mount Rushmore of female valets, managers, and the like in pro wrestling.
Oh, wow. Okay. So Sherry, um, she had a way of adding so much to every single thing that she did. So I would say that she would be number one. Of course, Miss Elizabeth. That would be another one. Gosh, let me
You
think.
can put yourself on there too. There's no shame in it.
No way. I mean, I've managed some great talent. I really have, and I've been incredibly blessed to do so. But no, I would not do that. I think there was that time when Melina was with the guys, like, oh my gosh, when she came out, like she was such a great manager. She added so much to it. Yeah, I would put her on there with the managers. And then of course, do you want just females?
Hey, I mean, if it's 2021, if you want to break away from that, go for it. No one stop you.
I would say Paul Heyman. I
Love it.
mean, male or female, there's no touching his managerial skills. So that would be my Mount Rushmore, I think.
I love it, and thank you for going through that. Your career is super interesting to me. I was just looking through the Wikipedia, and it's like you are not just a wrestler. You have an album. You've done the Diva Search. You've done reality shows like Outback Jack. You've modeled, obviously, Playboy. You've been in movies. What was the actual dream for you growing up?
I wanted to be a runway model.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I did. And then the first agency I ever went to said I was too short and too fat. At the time, I probably weighed like 96, 97 pounds. And I was 5'6".
Wow.
I'm now 5'7". I'm not going to give my weight. Perfect. We'll just say perfect. But yeah, I mean, it's funny because, you grow up in a small town and all you can think of is how do I get out of this place? And I would see the models and how glamorous they were strutting down the runway. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to strut right out of Ottawa.
Is it nice to, I mean, I don't know how much insight you have, but at least on the outside looking in, is it nice to see the apparent changes there are going, obviously with our society as a whole, but especially in the modeling game as it pertains to having plus size models and women of different ethnicities and cultures getting more of a shine?
It is for sure. I think that that's the biggest thing that I keep coming back to is just the diversity of it all and how accepting most people are. And that's really incredible for me. And I think that it's even going to grow more. I think there's going to be more and more acceptance as people understand more. So yeah, it's been really cool to see.
You've obviously been working a lot behind the scenes with Ring of Honor, and you had mentioned in a recent interview, I think it might have been with Inside the Ropes, that one of your last few matches at Wrestlemania, you got in there and you're kind of just going through the motions and you realize that spark wasn't quite there anymore. But when you look back on it, do you know what sort of killed that spark for you to be an in-ring competitor?
Yeah, actually, it was the whole day. So it used to be that when you got to the building at WrestleMania, you knew exactly where your family was going to go. You were able to show them why you've been away all year, like why you haven't been coming home, why you miss Christmas or Thanksgiving or birthdays, whatever. You were able to really just give your family a VIP treatment. And they didn't have that. And it was all about, the sponsors they had, their area, and then whatever else. But for the wrestlers themselves, there was no place for our families to go. And I was like, I don't like this. I don't like this attitude towards my family. And my daughter was actually stuck outside with my mother-in-law and my nanny for 45 minutes before I was able to even get them into the building, because it was so far away to get security down there. And actually what ended up happening is the person doing my makeup had to go and get my family.
Wow.
And it made me sad to think that wrestlers were no longer the ones that were special. It was the sponsors and the free giveaways to the VIPs. They all had rooms. But the talent's family, the families that have sacrificed the most, they had nowhere to go. And then when they did get in the building, they didn't have a backstage area. They had seats like up in the stands, and they couldn't even really see that well. And it was cold, and there was just nowhere for them to go. So, you know, I want to give all the fans such a great experience throughout the entire year. But for my family, I want to give them that VIP treatment at WrestleMania. And I wasn't able to.
I think in like I told you before we started, I cover the UFC a lot. I'm starting to cover more pro wrestling, and these are sports in a lot of ways that are very like selfish, singular pursuits. You have to give so much to it, and I definitely noticed, just kind of reading about you in the news cycle, about this shift that at least on the outside appears to have happened between your relationship and then especially your kids. Can you tell me what Maria's perspective on pro wrestling was, as it pertains to your personal life, was before having a family and then after you had children?
So I always had the same kind of perspective, and that's family's always first. Always first. It didn't matter when I would come home if I was just in the main event on Raw. I would come home if my parents needed something. I remember one time pushing a car in my heels after getting home. My dad needed help with one of his Mopars because he restores old cars. And so my family never treated me like I was special. I was their daughter. And so family has always came first. I've just gotten a lot more vocal about that. And the reason I was fired the first time from WWE was because I asked for too much. I asked for more money. I asked to be paid as much as the guys were being paid. So really, my views haven't changed that much. What's changed is the way I put information out there now. And I have a lot bigger platform now with Twitter and Instagram and all these things than I did the first time around with just Twitter.
And well, speaking of that enormous following, thank you for sharing my little graphic asking for questions.
Of course,
help fill out the spot. And listen, I'm always an advocate, especially when you talk about UFC fighters and wrestlers who are independent contractors, yet they somehow get tied into these deals that are much more like being employees. I'm all for these independent contractors coming up with more ways to speak out. So I do applaud you for that. You are now part of Ring of Honor's board of directors, overhauling the women's divisions. Where does this sort of fall under the most fulfilling stuff you've done in your pro wrestling career?
This is it. This is the most fulfilling. And I knew it. So there's been several moments, but like I actually, some of these tickets to gold, they didn't have a clue they were getting the ticket to gold, going to be in the tournament. When I jumped up on Willow after her match, she had no clue that this was happening. And so just that feeling of like, oh my gosh, this is my dream. And now someone's giving me a chance at my dream. Like, that's the most fulfilling thing I can do. That's something I can be proud of. I think that the women we've had in the tournament have been fantastic. The matches are incredible. And I can't wait for everybody to see them.
One of the most upvoted questions I got over on Reddit. AJ Styles was not too kind to you in one of your previous runs with Ring of Honor. He threw you right to the Young Bucks, who put you through a Meltzer driver. What are your memories of taking that move?
You know what? I don't remember that so much. I remember the triple super kick. For some
Mm.
reason, I still feel that because AJ got me so good on the top of my head. Like his heel just got me. And I went,
Oh. Well, we'll have to
who
call out
knows? The
AJ on
Bucks
that
could have
one.
got me too, but just AJ's heel, like it was just, yeah.
I'm so happy these wrestlers are wearing mouth guards more now because the quality of like the elbow and knee and heel strikes are like through the roof. But I imagine it's because they're making a lot more contact than they used to.
I have a feeling that is the case. I remember when we first switched over to HD and everybody like on Raw just freaked out. And so everybody was just like hammering away. And it's, oh no.
The forbidden door, as the fans love to talk about, has been busted wide open. We're seeing these working relationships all over the place. So I have to know any updates on any potential working agreements between Ring of Honor and AEW.
So with AEW, not at the moment right now. But that's not to say that it can't happen. I recently had a conversation with Thunder Rosa. I was trying to bring her in for the tournament. It didn't work out just because of everything that she's doing right now. But we have been having conversations with the NWA. As soon as we have a champion, I think we're going to move forward with some stuff there. Impact, of course, is an option. Deanna used to be with Ring of Honor. And we have Chelsea now, and Chelsea's kind of doing both. So, as much as I hate calling it the forbidden door, see, because as a woman, this is the wrong name for it. Options are open. We'll put it that way.
And I love to hear that. It's such an exciting time. And I actually took it off the questions because I was. Are you okay if we go a little bit longer than 15 minutes?
Of course, go right ahead.
Appreciate it.
I have my mom downstairs, and we're good.
Perfect. Shout out to mom slash grandma to the kids, of course. When you got into the pro wrestling industry, we're talking 2004, there weren't a whole lot of options out there in terms of like major alternatives. It's kind of a reemergence of the regional territories in a sense. For you, behind the scenes, I always talk to wrestlers about their status as free agents. How exciting is it for you to see that there's opportunities for the NWA to get national television exposure, that wrestlers are appearing on different programs? As someone who's in charge of creative aspects of running a show now, what does that mean for you?
More opportunities equal more opportunities. That's my thought process on it. If we can have wrestlers that not only work for us but work for several other companies, that's more exposure for Ring of Honor. And I think that that's you know, for me, that's across the board with all of our talent. Is I hope male or female, they can make as big of a name for themselves as they can, no matter what that show is.
You mentioned NWA. They have their EMPOWRRR special coming up on August 28th. Some people were wondering, any chance we're going to see Maria heading over to NWA for that?
You never know, but I will have to say that like once we have a champ and kind of solidified our women's division, because we're just re-upping this, we'll have a lot more options after that.
You were very open about the abundance of releases by the WWE over the last few months. There's been more. Bray Wyatt, obviously, the most recent example. And you've already touched on your frustrations with their process of just cleaving wrestlers. But I was wondering, what does all these recent cuts by the WWE tell you about their place in the ecosystem? Like, what do you sort of take from that situation?
So they're doing one of two things, and I'm not exactly sure which one. Either they're trying to cut things down so that they can sell. Because the biggest thing that you do before you sell, especially if you're selling to a major corporation like a Disney or Peacock, whatever, is you cut the fat. And you keep the show going, but it's more of a skeleton system of, one person doing a million jobs, basically. And that's recently what I've saw on in WWE is not only are they cutting talent that hasn't worked for a while or has maybe has just signed a big deal, they're also cutting people behind the scenes, and people behind the scenes are feeling more and more pressure because of those cuts. So they're either doing that or they're trying to scare their talent. And that's a horrible position to be in. And maybe what they're trying to do is say, yes, we are the big dogs. We'll decide who gets the most exposure, and it's going to be a very limited amount of people. When I entered WWE the first time, if you weren't on TV for 3 weeks, you knew that you were probably going to get released. You were terrified. And then when I went back this last time, you were less scared. You were like, there's other places to work. Tons of people are sitting in catering. Like, you could have had a party in catering every week. It was like, everyone, every table was full because nobody was working. So when I was in WWE the first time, maybe one person or two people were sitting in catering. Now it's a whole lot of people. And I think they're trying to cut that down. And, but you've also seen it with NXT. They'll bring people up just to kill them off. And it's like, why? And is it to kill off their buzz before they go back out there on the indies or go to AEW or wherever? Because I don't see a lot of sense that it makes. Or
I agree.
possibly they are failing. Like, I don't know. Maybe they are feeling the strain. But I can't imagine that when the payouts on dividends, especially to their major shareholders, has still been so big.
I'll have to woefully admit that 9-year-old and 10-year-old Shaq was very excited every time the news of a Braun Panties match came up on WWE advertisement. 25-year-old Shaq, not quite as comfortable with the idea. For you at the time, was there any, obviously looking back on it, like, wow, it feels like mid 2000s was far too late to still be putting on those kind of things. But what are your memories of doing them? Were you okay with the idea at the time, or even then was it a bit icky?
I was fine with it. I never had an issue with it. I mean, sure, looking back at it, I'm like, wow, I did all that. Okay, cool. But like, at the time, I didn't have a second thought about it. I was a bikini model. I came from the modeling world, so it was just one more thing that I was having a lot of fun doing. Was I pissed every time they were like, oh, your matches got cut down from 8 minutes to 2? Yes, I was pissed. But as far as those kind of matches, no, I just wanted to be taken more seriously when it came time to wrestle.
Gotcha. What was the worst storyline ever pitched to you in any organization, whether or not it made it to air?
Ah. I don't know if it was even pitched to me.
All good stories start with a chuckle.
Just the ending of this last storyline with WWE of like, okay, and now you're home. Yay. Like, it's so lame. I don't know who came up with that. But yeah, all of a sudden we were just no longer on TV. I think that was pretty silly.
Now I have to do a lot of filtering when I make the time to put out there, hey, anyone have any questions for X wrestler, Y wrestler, Z wrestler? And there's something that came up that, while I don't agree with, I was kind of interested in hearing your rebuttal. So let me think about the best way to phrase this and try and do away with a bit of the stupidity. I guess some fans have the impression that during your most recent WWE run, that it would have been difficult to book both you and Mike based on the pregnancies and obviously the stuff that Mike was dealing with in his own personal life with his recovery. Do you have a rebuttal to that sentiment?
Okay. So my biggest thing is nobody listens. And nobody likes the truth. The truth is very hard for people to hear. And so I will answer this question, but I think I'm going to stop.
And I thank you for it, but please stop. Yeah, stop wherever you want in the process.
No. It's okay. It's just I've come to the realization that most people don't want the truth, and it's sad. It's sad people don't want the truth. They want it to fit into some weird narrative that I don't know, that me and my husband, we just played the system. And I think let's start from the beginning. When Mike and I were picked up from WWE, it was in March. So we were picked up in March. And we were promised the world. We didn't want to leave Impact. We were happy. They offered us the exact same, they had offered us more money and the exact same money that WWE had offered us initially. So, what WWE did is they offered us a little bit more and they told us we didn't have to move. I was fine with moving, but whatever, moving's expensive. So, they sat us. They told us that we were possibly going to be on Raw after WrestleMania. Didn't happen. Sat us at home. So here we are with all these promises being made, and we're sitting at home now for 4 months before they even like decided to start talking to us. It was ridiculous. Um, and so we're already feeling very much like, why the hell did we make this decision to come to WWE? So then we get down to Florida for the Mae Young Classic, and Mike tells me he has addiction. Now, nobody knew at that time. It was on, is it Saturday morning that he told me he had this addiction. We were supposed to be going to Disney World. He had spent all our money, and I didn't know. And so we couldn't afford to go to Disney that day. And he was afraid he was going to die because he didn't have any painkillers. So we didn't tell anybody. We sat in a hotel room all weekend and I made sure he didn't die. He had the Clasta whatever patch on his shoulder. You can actually see the Band-Aid over it in his match against Sammy. And we didn't tell WWE because we were afraid that because they hadn't used us, they were going to just release us. So we didn't say anything. And I rehabbed Mike. I'm the one that made sure he was taking his blood pressure medication, and there was something else they gave him, and it's basically to make it so you can get out of being addicted to this. So then 2 weeks later, we found out I was pregnant. Now, we weren't trying. We had tried when we were in Impact, but we hadn't been trying. And I was under the belief that it wasn't even possible at that point because we had tried before and it wasn't happening. Just so happened that we got pregnant at that time. Now, I was devastated. I didn't know what to do. Like I wasn't even really talking to Mike. I was only taking care of him. I didn't even know if we were going to stay together at that point because he had lied to me for 4.5 years. And so again, WWE had no idea that Mike had this addiction and was in recovery. I find out I'm pregnant and it was early. I didn't know if we'd even keep the baby because a lot of times if there's going to be a miscarriage, it happens within those first few weeks. And so we held on to that information. And then Miz and Maurice announced they were pregnant. And the very next day, we told WWE. And when we had our conversation with them, I said, I can stay on the road. I can work. My doctor said I am a very low risk pregnancy. I'm healthy. So I can stay on the road as long as possible. No. Stay home. Okay, fine. So then it was right around that time that Mike came out that he had an addiction and he was in recovery. Now, he had already been recovering for weeks. I had already been through the gamut of watching his cell phone and keeping his iPads and everything so that he couldn't go to a dealer. He was also starting on the road full time. So this is where people screw it up. They say he went to rehab. He didn't go to rehab. He was on the road full time with WWE. He was afraid that he was going to lose his job if he told them. So he already went through rehab by the time he told them. And that rehab was me, no one else. I was the one like cleaning him up when he was sick and making sure that he didn't die. So then we found out I was pregnant. Um, and then he told WWE about his addiction. And so, in no way did we go into it believing, oh, WWE should pay for this. No, it was a very shitty course of events. It was incredibly difficult. There were times I didn't think my marriage was going to last. There were times that I was afraid that I was going to get fired. So then, fast forward. Um, we start conversations with WWE. Our contract was up in June of 2019. It was right 19, yeah, 19. And so we started talks, and I was like, okay, guys, I am going to get pregnant again. Are you okay with that? Because if you're not, that's fine. We just want to let you guys know, just in case you want to change my deal. Like, if you want to have me be backstage, if you want me to just not resign, I'll go somewhere else. Like, but we're going to have another baby because we want two kids that are close together. And we want them to have each other when we go on the road. Like, sure. That's just what we wanted to do. That was our family planning. P.S. My family planning is nobody's business, but because it was asked, I am answering you this. So we told WWE, we had many conversations with them. I'll take less money. I'll go on a pay-per-appearance, like whatever. Like, I was accepting of anything. But what I did know is I was not going to postpone my life because of WWE. Great opportunity, but I've already done it. Like, I've already been to WWE. So they come around with the contract. It's more money, and it's not a paid per appearance deal, nothing. I was like, guys, that's great, but I'm going to have a baby. I want to get pregnant again. Are you guys okay with this? Yes. Vince loves kids. That was the exact line. Vince loves kids. Okay. Let's go ahead and try. Try and get pregnant. Got pregnant. And we signed our contracts, found I was pregnant 2 weeks later. So while we were negotiating, we were trying to get pregnant. They signed us anyways. Okay, not my fault. And then from there, I started getting the direct messages from different news outlets. Oh, did you not tell him? Blah, blah, blah. Those rumors are coming directly from WWE, and they're just trying to make us look bad so that when they release us, they can feel better about it. But we gave them every opportunity to restructure my contract or not pay me as much. They came with more money. That's not my fault. And so those are the facts. Mike was on the road every single weekend during his recovery. He didn't go to WWE's recovery. They didn't pay for his recovery. If they had, Mike would have ended up paying 50% of it back anyways through his contract. Little known fact, Linda McMahon actually spoke about it during a congressional Congress interrogation, I guess you would call it. So you guys can look it up if you want facts. Those are the facts. That even if they had, Mike would have paid for 50% of it anyways. But they did not. Also, WWE did not pay for all of my schooling. They paid for $2,000. I still have $70,000 in student loans. So all of these rumors and lies that people want to spin, be careful, because the truth is much different. They gave me a scholarship, and I appreciate the scholarship, but it was for $2,000. That doesn't cover going to Johnson & Wales University. Like, it just doesn't. If you look it up, you can find the facts of how much it was that they gave me. If you look it up, you can find out that WWE was on the road every single weekend that I was pregnant. He did not go to rehab. He did not go away. So I answered the question. it's up to the fans to actually listen and do the research. It's a simple Google search. If you want to see these things and actually reason them out, the information is out there. And I'm sorry that this world has gotten so full of misinformation. But again, most of these things, the facts matter. And so look them up. There you go. Sorry, it's such a long-winded story.
No.
But I feel like it's important for people to understand that there are facts behind it.
I agree. And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, it's okay. It's no big deal.
I generally like to keep my interviews kind of like light and fun, but sometimes, these are important stories that need to be told and information that needs to get out there. So I appreciate you being willing to talk to me about it.
Of course. And I've come to the realization that it's not the fans' fault in the most, in the most cases. Like, they just read something online and they're like, oh, that must be true. But it's not.
There's also a portion that, like, I noticed this a lot covering MMA, but there's this thing where it's like a lot of people want to be pro company and not pro talent, which I never understand, but neither here nor there. Okay, as we wrap up, Maria, it's been so generous with your time. I do want to end on some lighter notes, just so you leave here smiling.
I'm smiling. It's not the fans' fault. It isn't, for the most part. It just gets spun around, and like, I still love my fans. I do, and I want to be back out in front of live crowds and sellout crowds. It's just getting over this hurdle that people don't understand or are not willing to understand.
What are your memories of doing YouShoot? Because I find that to be one of the most, like, bizarre, sometimes fun, sometimes cringy pro wrestling interviews ever.
So, YouShoot, oh my gosh, I got in so much trouble. I'm an honest person, and I think sometimes, like, that just, it's a little too much. I have a statement for my husband all the time. I'm not mean, I'm just honest. And I think maybe I take it a little too extreme from time to time, but it is so funny. Like, it's so funny. Now I can't watch it back. Like, I see that person and I'm like, no, I'm not there anymore. Like, I'm such like a happy, like, motivated, driven person for my own life that I don't have time for nonsense. But like, that's what, I can't watch it. But at the time, it was so much fun.
Okay. You main evented Raw with John Cena, had some programs with him. And here, I mean, listen, he was, even at the time, obviously a megastar. But now we're talking a different level. He stars in the new Suicide Squad movie that came out. He will have his own Peacemaker spin-off on HBO Max. What's it like to see John from where he was as a WWE star to now just a legitimate Hollywood star?
It's crazy. John always had such like motivation. But I used to end up eating breakfast with him a lot on international tours because they would have like a breakfast set up downstairs in hotels. And I was always up early because I wasn't a drinker. And then he was always up early because he was going to the gym. And so I'd end up sitting down with him for breakfast. And he's just a lovely human. And always so motivated. And like, thinking back to those first interviews when I know he was nervous and I was nervous because we were so young and just like figuring it out. And to see him today, like, I'm really happy for him. I am.
And last question, Rose women's division this time next year, where do you expect it to be?
Hopefully with a ton of exposure and having our own shows for Women's Division Wednesday. That's the goal. I mean, we've had 15 all women shows. It's funny that people are like, oh, one all women show. I'm like, 15. We're on 15. And sure, they don't all have matches on them. I think 12 of them have had matches on them. But yeah, I hope that we're still running a weekly show. I hope that Beyond the Bells does really well with Lufisto and Alyssa. I'm hoping that we continue to have surprises like we had Dixie Carter on last night. Mm-hmm. So like, it's just, it's the Women's Wrestling Coalition, and we're all coming together. And I hope that every single company that has women's wrestling continues to grow and rise. It's amazing.
Maria, I want to thank you first and foremost so much for your time today, your
Thank
candor,
you.
your enthusiasm. I really love doing this. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, notification bell, all that good stuff. Maria, it's been an amazing year watching what you and Ring of Honor have been up to, and obviously I'm wishing you all the best moving forward.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.